Cedar Creek, Indiana, the kind of town where secrets outnumber the streetlights. It began in April, with mist over the river and news no one wanted to hear. Local teacher found dead, the paper said, under that Ruth Danner's name. Sheriff Edwin Parks woke before dawn. He'd solved burglaries, never murder. Ruth was 39, liked crossword puzzles, painted birds on her mailbox. The body was discovered in a clearing off Ridge Road. Raw, cold, brutal. The whole town closed in. Everyone knew someone who knew Ruth. Yellow tape circled the crime scene. Cedar pollen drifted in the shafts of sunrise. No one remembered hearing a scream. Nobody goes there after dark, except Ruth. Her car sat on gravel, door ajar, purse on the seat, engine cold. Sheriff Parks checked for footprints, only his own, spelling lonely circles. Forensics found a silver button, torn loose, stained with blood. Ruth wore a red scarf the day she vanished. The scarf was gone. Her cell phone, powered down, lay beside a snap branch. Deputy Olivia Hayes interviewed Ruth's neighbors. She was loved, they repeated. Loved and, someone whispered, feared, at least by a jealous ex or two. Joe Brandt, Ruth's ex-husband, winced at news reporters, eyes raw from crying. He claimed he was home, alone, fixing his truck. No one vouched for him. Ruth's sister Amy arrived, suitcase in hand, haunted by questions and old memories. For Amy, the grief began to curdle into suspicion. Ruth's best friend Marlene said Ruth had been troubled, but wouldn't say why. Ledger in Ruth's attic, a column of names, payments, dates. Among them, the mayor's son, the local judge, half the bowling team. A town of secrets, and Ruth perhaps knew most of them. A single set of prints, partial but not Ruth's, on the car window. The sheriff's board filled with suspects, ex-husband, local handyman, student, and a drifter. A knife was found upstream, blade wiped clean, handle wrapped in red thread. The town gossip circled. Ruth's last PTA meeting replayed in side-eyed whispers. Marlene confessed Ruth mentioned being followed 2 weeks prior. A faded photo, Ruth, Joe Brandt, and a teenager in the middle. Jesse Parson, Ruth's troubled former student. Jesse had left town last summer, but came back the week Ruth died. Sheriff Parks tracked him to an abandoned barn, tire marks carving fresh mud. Jesse claimed innocence, showed train ticket stubs, hands shaking. Under barn floorboards, a red scarf partially buried, the label torn away. A single blonde hair on the scarf, Ruth's hair was brown. Inside the scarf, a tiny key, engraved Room 9. At the Cedar Arms Motel, Room 9 was registered to a James Allen. The clerk remembered nothing but a bad tip and a slight limp. Security footage, hood drawn low, man in old denim jacket. Amy identified the jacket. It once belonged to Joe Brandt. Joe stammered that his jacket was stolen months ago. "Ask the mayor's kid," he said. The mayor's son, Peter, said he'd borrowed the jacket one night, but never saw it again. The whole town watched the case like a play, everyone quoting scenes, no one trusting another. A second button, matching the first, found in the mayor's backyard fire pit, half melted. Peter flinched when officers arrived, but explained he'd been camping that night. Ruth's text to Marlene: "Can't talk, meeting with someone tonight. If I'm not back, check the bridge." At Cedar Creek Bridge, a muddy print matched a size 11 boot. Amy said Joe wore size 11, but so did Jesse. The drifter, Walter Cook, slept under the bridge the same night. He turned in a torn red scarf he found, for the reward. Forensics found no blood on Walter's scarf. It wasn't Ruth's, just a coincidence. Sheriff Parks sat in his office, map on the desk, case staring back at him. Joe's fingerprints surfaced only on Ruth's car. Jesse's alibi checked out. He was seen at the bus depot after midnight. The handyman, Ron Bixley, claimed to know nothing, but wore a faded red thread on his wrist. Ron said he cut it from an old jacket 2 days ago. At receipt in room 9 for fuel, time-stamped 11:09 p.m., Ruth died around midnight. Reports trickled in. A bloodied man limped into the hospital at 1:15 a.m., gave a false name. Amy visited the hospital. The night nurse recalled the limp, but not the face. A streetlight near Cedar Creek blinked out at midnight, camera nearby, footage corrupted. Marlene confessed Ruth had been blackmailing someone. The envelope in Ruth's attic was unmarked, packed with $20 bills. The bills traced to a withdrawal by the judge's wife 3 days prior. The judge's wife swore she gave the cash to Marlene as a loan. Marlene broke down, finally admitted Ruth had pressured her for money. Amy, desperate for clarity, retraced Ruth's last steps, rain lashing down. She found Ruth's spare phone hidden under an old flower pot, buzzing faintly. Voicemail. Ruth whispering, "He's here. He knows everything." The scarf was a warning. "Tell Amy." Sheriff Parks, listening, realized the voice behind Ruth's whisper. Someone with a rough cough. A list of suspects reduced to 3: Joe, Peter, Ron. Peter was missing from a council meeting that night. Ron, no confirmed whereabouts. Joe, meanwhile, tried to leave town, caught at the bus station, packed bags, panic in eyes. More forensics. The blood on the scarf was AB negative. Joe and Ruth both had O-type. Peter's records showed rare AB negative blood. They searched the mayor's property. In the tool shed, a denim jacket, blood at the cuff, limp arm imprint. Peter confessed to hitting something on his bike, vague about details. Under pressure, he admitted Ruth caught him stealing checks, threatened to warn his father. He hadn't meant to hurt her, just scare enough to keep her quiet. But in the dark, things went wrong. The town breathed again, in shock, relief, and something close to shame. The mayor tried to hush the story, but Cedar Creek remembered. Ruth's funeral, full of students and silences. Amy stood by the grave, read from Ruth's diary. Sheriff Parks filed the final report with a heavy heart, knowing the town would never quite forgive or forget. Amy left Cedar Creek soon after, suitcase lighter, answers heavier. Joe returned home, fixing trucks and trying to fix his name. Ron Bixley found new work in another county, never wearing red again. The mayor's son disappeared from public life, parents solemn and withdrawn. Marlene placed flowers on Ruth's grave every year, whispers lost in the wind. Sheriff Parks still walked Ridge Road before sunrise, but no one lingered where Ruth had fallen. Amy visited once more, brushed dirt from Ruth's name, left a cedar branch for luck. Cedar Creek learned to speak softly, trust less, and watch the river mist at dawn. Secrets, someone said, rise with the dew and vanish in the sun. But for some in Cedar Creek, the shadows never quite went away. Sometimes after dark, headlights catch a glimmer of red where Ridge Road bends. School children tell stories of Ruth's ghost, kind, quiet, watchful. But the grown-ups just lock their doors and remember not to ask too many questions. Because the lesson of Ruth Danner is that truth in Cedar Creek always comes with a price. And though the town will move on, the silence where Ruth once laughed is sometimes the loudest sound of all. They say Ruth's favorite spot stayed empty for a year. No one sat there until the flowers bloomed again. Deputy Hayes patrolled each night, quietly keeping her own promise to Ruth and the town. Parks read the old articles on sleepless nights, always wondering if he might have missed something. Each season, Amy returned, sometimes alone, sometimes with flowers, sometimes with questions. The story of Ruth in the red scarf became legend in drawing, rhyme, and playground tale. Far from Cedar Creek, Peter lived quietly, haunted by a past that never quite left him. Joe's life moved on in fits and starts, but the stain of suspicion always clung to his hands. The next generation made games of the shadows, never knowing the truth underneath. The case lived in the center of the station, a silent reminder, always watching. Amy visited some summers, just long enough to remember, never long enough to stay. Marlene sometimes wandered the paths Ruth once walked, searching the morning air for answers. Sometimes Peter wrote apologies he could never send, not to Amy, not to Cedar Creek, not to himself. Even on holidays, a single light stayed on in memory of Ruth. Years later, Parks retired, but couldn't put down the story or the questions. The lessons found voice in town meetings, so Ruth's memory might protect someone else. Nature healed what city could not, but still, something lingered on Ridge Road. Across the miles, Amy kept traces of Cedar Creek, reminders of both love and loss. Parks smiled at Amy's postcards, both of them writing more than they said. A new sun rose, and Cedar Creek learned, slowly, to pray for the living and remember the lost. Most days, the street looked ordinary. Most days, people passed on by. The mayor's house grew quieter, and memories echoed in every room. Her name became a scholarship, reminder and hope for every student who needed a second chance. Joe learned the art of holding his head high, even when the world looked away. Hayes kept her promise, watching the town and its shadows. What Ruth left behind faded slower than the pain. On lonely nights, Amy reread Ruth's words, searching for peace, or maybe just for sleep. Some nights, the fog on Ridge Road seemed to carry secrets only Ruth could have known. The youngest learned her story as lesson and caution, never just as tragedy. Joe learned that time dims memories, but never erases regrets. Hayes made sure Ruth was remembered for her kindness, not her absence. The bridge always kept one red ribbon, even after the years washed so much away. In time, Amy and Marlene found comfort in forgiveness, if not in answers. A new teacher filled Ruth's classroom, but traces of her warmth lingered. Traditions survived the shadows. Children ran, wore red scarves, and chased the dusk. Parks found life again, learning to laugh without feeling guilty. Amy took Ruth everywhere, a reminder, a promise, a sister's tribute. Peter lived in cities where no one knew his mistake, but the red always made him pause. Marlene filled her life with words, finally at peace with old ghosts. A new generation learned vigilance, never losing hope. A new spring brought hope, and just a little lingering sorrow. Time and pain softened old bitterness, if not every scar. Her legacy lived on, in every kindness that followed. Some wounds never healed completely, but Parks watched out for those who couldn't defend themselves. Hayes protected Ruth's memory, even as new cases came and went. At night, the woods sometimes felt as if they remembered too. Amy kept a candle in her window for Ruth and all the others lost and missing. Joy crept back into life, in moments small but irreplaceable. Healing spread in Cedar Creek, a little at a time. The new generation builds legends on shadows, but sometimes they remember to listen. Together, they carry the town's weight and its hope into the future. In new places, Amy planted roots and memories, life growing again. Stories kept Ruth alive for those who never knew her face. Even in glass, his badge still watched over Cedar Creek. Some stories ended in laughter, some in tears, all honored Ruth in their telling. Small memorials appeared and vanished, echoes of grief and hope. Goodbyes came gentle, with respect and quiet pride. Sometimes the wind would catch a bit of red, high enough for only the birds to see. Ties to Ruth spanned towns and hearts, hope fluttering in every new place. Some memories pursued, some haunted. Peter kept moving, never truly free. Life continued, fields grew, roads bent toward dawn. She became part of the town's story, never just a victim, but a guide. The river kept its secrets, but offered peace for those ready to find it. The sheriff's legacy was not the sorrow he carried, but the joy he shared after. Forgiveness, like autumn light, came late, but shone warmly on what remained. Always a flower or two marked the place, year after year. She trained others, ensuring Cedar Creek remembered and kept each other safe. Amy kept her sister alive in every kindness, every future she made room for. The shadows softened, but never fully faded, the price of knowing and caring. At night, the road was almost peaceful, as if the earth itself kept watch. And so Ruth's memory drifted onward, gentle, ever present, and never, ever lost. Subscribe to the channel and watch even more fascinating stories.